They were lowering my wife's coffin when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. When it buzzed again, I clenched my jaw. But the third time, I finally checked the screen, and the moment I read the name, my grief cracked open into fear. It was my wife's boss, and the message simply said, "You need to see what she left behind. Call me now." On the day I buried my wife, she supposedly left something behind that couldn't wait. My name is Mark Ellington. I'm 51 years old, from Seattle, Washington. Yesterday, I lost my wife. Today, I buried her. And tonight, I was going to discover a side of her life she never told me about. The gray Seattle sky drizzled lightly, raindrops mixing with tears on every face around me. My daughter, Lily, clung to my arm like she was afraid the earth would swallow her too. I rested my hand on her shoulder as the coffin descended into the ground, a slow, heavy motion that crushed something inside me with every inch. I stared at the polished wood, waiting for the moment it would feel real. It didn't. Nothing felt real. Not the priest's soft words. Not the shovels of dirt. Not the sniffles behind me. Not the empty ache in my chest. Then my phone buzzed again. Not a call this time. A text. A long one. From Helen Marshall, my wife's department head at the tech firm where she worked. I blinked at the screen. "Mark, please. I'm so sorry for your loss. But there are files Rachel kept. Private files. About something she was dealing with at work. I can't explain over text. You have to see them. Tonight." My heart stuttered. Files? Something she was dealing with? And Helen couldn't explain over text? A man behind me cleared his throat. "I'm sorry for your loss," he whispered. I barely heard him. My eyes were still glued to the message. Why would my wife's boss need to contact me during her funeral? What couldn't wait? What did my wife hide that her boss felt responsible to reveal? The service ended. People approached me one by one, hands on my shoulder, soft condolences, hushed comments about strength and healing. I nodded through all of it, but my mind was nowhere near them. I kept replaying Helen's message. Private files. Tonight. Can't explain. You have to see them. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. A former coworker of my wife approached me next. A nervous young guy, twisting his hands. "Mr. Ellington, I'm really sorry. Rachel was going through a lot." I frowned. "A lot? What do you mean?" He swallowed hard. I shouldn't say anything. Not here. Not with." He stopped abruptly. I followed his gaze. A tall man in a charcoal suit was watching us from across the cemetery. Sharp eyes, cold expression. He slowly turned away and walked toward a black SUV. The coworker instantly shut down. "I'm sorry," he whispered, backing away. "I'm sorry for everything." Then he left. My stomach twisted. Who was that man? Why did he scare the coworker into silence? Why was he even at the funeral? I reached for my phone again. One new message from Helen. "Mark, please. Before things get wiped." Wiped. That word landed like ice in my chest. What files needed to be wiped the same day my wife was lowered into the ground? The house felt sickeningly quiet. Rachel's sweater still draped over the sofa, her favorite book open on the side table, her perfume faintly lingering in the hallway. Lily went straight to her room and closed the door gently behind her. I stood alone in the living room, staring at the walls like they'd start talking. Then my phone rang again. Helen. I answered this time. Her voice shook. "Mark? Thank God you picked up. Everything here is being." She paused. I heard muffled voices behind her. Footsteps. An office door closing. Then she whispered, "Mark, please come to the office tonight. Use the west entrance. I'll meet you on the 6th floor. And Mark," her breath shuddered, "prepare yourself. Rachel didn't want you to bear this alone." A cold numbness spread through my chest. "Helen, what are you talking about?" "It's about the accident," she whispered. And what happened before it? My pulse hammered. What happened before it? She swallowed audibly. I can't say on the phone. They monitor everything. Just come. The line cut. Not ended. Cut. Like someone pulled the phone away from her. I set the phone down slowly. Rachel, my wife, my partner, for 22 years. What had she gotten into? What was she hiding? Why did she leave files behind that someone would try to erase? I walked down the hallway, staring at the framed photos of our vacations, our anniversary, Lily's first day of school. Everything suddenly felt like a lie I wasn't smart enough to see. I stood outside Lily's room. Her soft crying leaked through the door. I'll be back soon, I whispered. I grabbed my coat, my keys, and the courage I didn't know I had. As I stepped outside, a cold wind hit my face. I locked the door behind me and walked toward my car. Tonight, I was going to my wife's office. Tonight, I was going to learn the truth she never told me. And deep down, I already knew. Whatever waited for me on that 6th floor was the real reason my wife was dead. Seattle at night looks different when you're chasing the truth. Streetlights blur into long yellow streaks. Buildings turn into shadows. Every intersection feels like a question you don't want the answer to. As I drove toward my wife's office, I kept replaying Helen's voice. Prepare yourself. Rachel didn't want you to bear this alone. Bear what? The accident? The stress? Something she found? Something she did? The questions rattled in my head until I finally pulled into the parking garage beneath the tall glass building where Rachel worked. The place was nearly empty. Just a few scattered cars and the cold hum of fluorescent lights. I stepped out of the car. My footsteps echoed sharply on the concrete. My phone buzzed. A text from Helen. West entrance. 6th floor. Don't talk to anyone. Don't talk to anyone. In an empty office building at night. Why would I even need to? The lobby was dim, lit only by emergency lights. The security desk was empty. No guard. That wasn't normal. Rachel had mentioned how strict their nighttime protocols were. Nobody in or out without signing. Tonight, no one was there to stop me. The west entrance beeped softly and unlocked as I pushed the handle. Helen had opened it remotely. Inside, the building was too quiet. Office towers at night usually hum with servers, elevators, cleaning crews. But this place felt abandoned. I reached the elevator and hit the button. The doors opened at once like someone had sent it down for me. My pulse climbed. On the 6th floor, the lights were all off except for a faint glow coming from the glass-walled corridor ahead. The air smelled like dust and something else fierce. Helen stood near a conference table. Her shoulders were tense. Her eyes darted nervously toward every corner. When she saw me, she motioned sharply. Close the door. I did. She let out a shaking breath. Mark, thank you for coming. I know today has what's going on, I demanded. What are these files you keep talking about? She swallowed. It's about Rachel, about what she was working on, about what she found. My heart tightened. What did she find? Helen didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her purse and pulled out a thin USB drive. She held it between two trembling fingers. This is from Rachel's desk. I took it before they could shred everything. Who? I asked. Who would shred it? Helen's voice dropped to a whisper. The executives. Compliance. People above my pay grade. People who knew she was digging. A shiver crawled down my spine. Digging into what? She plugged the USB into the conference room laptop and opened a folder labeled Red Private in all caps. Inside were subfolders, internal audits, expense reports, security footage, employee complaints, confidential, archive. I stared at the screen. What is all this? Helen sat down, looking pale. Rachel was investigating something. Something big. She didn't tell me everything she wanted to protect me, but she told me enough to know she was scared. My breath caught. She was scared. Helen nodded. 2 days before the accident, she came to my office shaking. She said, "If something happens to me, don't let them erase what I found." My chest tightened painfully. She said that? Yes. I sank into the chair slowly. What did she find, Helen? Helen opened security footage. A list of timestamps appeared. Rachel had bookmarked several. Helen clicked the top one. It was grainy camera footage from the underground loading dock. At 2:14 a.m., 4 men faces blurred by distance loaded sealed crates into an unmarked van. No labels. No company markings. No paperwork. Illegal. Hidden. Wrong. "This building closes at 6 p.m., Helen whispered. "No one is allowed in afterward. But someone was using the dock at night. Week after week." My heartbeat thudded in my ears. "What's in the crates?" I asked. "We don't know." She didn't tell me, but she believed it wasn't legal. My stomach twisted. And she was investigating alone? Yes. She said she couldn't trust anyone internally. Another click. Another video. Another van. Another group of men. Same pattern. They always parked in the corner where cameras barely reached. They always looked over their shoulders. And always they entered using the same ID card number. Rachel had traced it. Helen clicked a document. My heart stopped. ID owner. Kevin Pruitt, Regional Compliance Director. The same man watching the coworker at the funeral. The same man who left in the black SUV. The same man who shouldn't have been there. I clenched the table. "Helen, this is criminal." "I know," she whispered. So did Rachel. Helen clicked employee complaints. There were dozens, all marked confidential. Employees complaining about missing inventory, unexplained write-offs, forced overtime at night, and unsafe shipments. Rachel had added notes beside each one. Things like cross-check with warehouse logs, same shipping location as night crates. Employees threatened not to speak. Helen closed the folder with shaky hands. She worked on this every night after her shift. She stayed late. She dug through logs. She risked her job. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would Rachel fight so hard?" Helen turned to me slowly. She kept saying the same thing. "If they get exposed, people get hurt. I won't let that happen." I exhaled sharply. My wife didn't die depressed, or distant, or careless. She died scared, fighting something alone. Helen opened the final folder. For Mark, my heart stopped. Inside was a single document, a letter. My vision blurred as I clicked it. Rachel's words appeared on the screen. "Mark, if you're reading this, it means something has happened to me. Something I tried to avoid, something I tried to stop. If I die, don't believe it was an accident. Please, protect Lily, and trust Helen. There are people in this company who would do anything to keep their secret buried. I found too much. I think they know. I think they're watching me. Mark, I love you. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. But I knew you'd try to save me. And you'd put yourself in danger. Whatever happens to me, don't let them erase the truth. Rachel." My hands shook uncontrollably. I stared at the letter as if my wife were speaking through the screen. "She knew," I whispered. "She knew something would happen." Helen nodded, tears in her eyes. She begged me to keep this hidden. I wiped my face, breath shaking. "Helen, did Rachel tell you who threatened her?" Helen hesitated, then whispered, "No, but she left a name in her notebook. I didn't understand it then. But now," I looked up. "Who?" Helen's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. "The man at the funeral." The moment Helen said it, the room seemed to shrink around me. "The man at the funeral," she whispered again. Rachel wrote his name over and over, sometimes circled, sometimes underlined. My pulse throbbed in my throat. "Kevin Pruitt?" I asked. Helen nodded slowly. "Yes, the same man from the loading dock footage." The same man who stood behind you at the graveside. The same man who's been deleting files all afternoon. A cold, sharp fear slid into my spine. He threatened her? I asked. Helen's voice cracked. He said, if she didn't stop digging, there would be consequences. She came to my office crying. Said someone followed her to her car. Said her apartment buzzer rang at 3 a.m. and no one was there. I clenched my fists. She was terrified. She was alone. And she never told me. Not because she didn't trust me, but because she wanted to keep me safe. Helen reached into her bag again. There's one more thing, she whispered. The thing she hid from everyone. She pulled out a small black notebook. Rachel's handwriting filled every page. Dates, tracking numbers, shipments, initials. But the last page wasn't data. It was a message, written shakily, like she wrote it fast, or scared, or both. If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. Check the night logs. Check Kevin's card access. Don't go alone. My breath thinned. Don't go alone, I murmured. But I'm already here. Before Helen could respond, the elevator dinged. We both froze. Footsteps approached, slow, heavy. Helen's eyes widened with terror. Mark, she whispered, he can't see you here. The lights in the hallway flickered. A shadow moved across the frosted glass, a man's silhouette. Tall, broad shoulders, hands in pockets. Kevin. He'd come to the 6th floor. And he wasn't alone. The shadow outside the glass panel didn't move at first. It just stood there, silent, watching. Helen gripped my arm so tightly her nails dug into my skin. Mark, hide, she whispered. But there was nowhere to hide. The conference room was glass on 3 sides and a solid door on the 4th. We were trapped. The shadow shifted. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moved toward the door. Helen's breath hitched. I shouldn't have brought you here, she whispered. If he finds you. She didn't finish the sentence. I stepped in front of her instinctively. Then the doorknob turned. My pulse hammered so violently I thought it would rip through my ribs. The door opened, but it wasn't Kevin. It was a janitor. Older, thin, holding a mop bucket. He blinked at us. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to scare you. Helen sagged against the wall in relief, breathing like she'd been strangled. But the janitor wasn't what scared her. It was the fact that Kevin was somewhere on this floor. Watching. Listening. Deleting Rachel's life piece by piece. I nodded to the janitor and shut the door quickly. We need to get out of here, Helen said. Right now. What about the files? The footage? Her letter? I asked. I already downloaded copies, she whispered. But if he finds us with them... The lights flickered again. This time longer. Like someone had killed power on the floor. My skin went cold. He knows we're here, Helen said. I grabbed the USB and Rachel's notebook. Then we leave now. We slipped out of the conference room and into the darkened hallway. Emergency lights cast dim, red glows around corners. The building felt like a steel maze. Helen led the way, whispering, Stay close. And whatever you do, don't talk. Every sound felt amplified our footsteps, the creaking floor panels, the hum of faraway servers. Then we heard it. An elevator door opening. And a voice, male, low, controlled. Kevin. 6th floor is clear. They're still here somewhere. Search everything. My stomach nodded. He didn't come alone. I whispered to Helen. Stairs. Now. We moved as quietly as possible, slipping around the corner toward the emergency exit. But behind us, footsteps. Multiple footsteps. Helen reached the stairwell door just as the hallway lights came on behind us. Someone had flipped the switch. We froze. Down the hall, Kevin stood there in his dark suit, staring straight at us. He smiled. Not a friendly smile. A knowing smile. Mark, he said calmly, as if greeting someone at a dinner party. I was hoping you'd come. My blood turned to ice. Helen whispered, Run. I shoved open the stairwell door, and we bolted down the stairs. Kevin shouted, "Stop them!" Heavy footsteps thundered behind us. We sprinted down one flight, another, until the exit sign glowed ahead. Bursting through the door, we stumbled into the parking garage. Empty, echoing, cold. Our footsteps were the only sound. Then, the stairwell door slammed open behind us. "Helen, this way." I grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward my car. She fumbled with her phone. "I'm calling the police." "No," I hissed. "If Kevin's involved, so are they. Rachel said she didn't trust anyone on the inside, not even security." She nodded, trembling. We reached my car. I shoved the USB and notebook into my coat pocket and unlocked the doors. Helen slipped into the passenger seat. I started the engine. Headlights flared. A black SUV blocked the exit. Kevin stepped out of the shadows, walking toward us. Slow, confident, certain he'd cornered us. Helen gasped. "We're trapped." "No," I said. "We're done running." I slammed the car into reverse, spun the wheel, and shot toward the upper ramp. The tires screeched. The SUV roared to life behind us. We sped up the levels 1, 2, 3. At the rooftop exit, I punched through the barrier gate, splintering it to pieces. We burst into the open night air as the rain poured harder. The SUV followed. He was not letting us leave with those files. At the far end of the rooftop, a dozen more cars were parked. Employees working late? No. People waiting. Men I didn't recognize. All watching. Every instinct in me screamed danger. I spun the wheel, skidding the car sideways, rain splashing across the windshield. Helen gripped the dashboard. "What do we do?" I hit the gas and headed straight for the maintenance ramp on the opposite corner. It led to the alley behind the building, a tight escape route. The SUV sped after us. In the mirror, I saw Kevin lean out the window, phone pressed to his ear. He wasn't calling backup. He was calling someone to cover this up. Someone powerful. We burst through the gate at the bottom of the ramp, bounced hard onto the street, and flew into the dark alley. The SUV didn't risk the drop. It veered left. We lost him. For now, we finally stopped miles away, under a street lamp near the waterfront. Helen was shaking. I wasn't any better. I pulled out Rachel's notebook. The final page stared at me again. "If anything happens to me, don't go alone," I whispered. "I'm sorry, Rachel. I should have listened sooner." Helen wiped her eyes. "What do we do now?" "We finish what she started," I said quietly. "No matter who tries to stop us. But they'll come after us," she whispered. "They already know." I nodded. "And that's why we expose everything." She swallowed hard. "How?" I held up the USB. "With this." For the first time since Rachel died, I felt something inside me shift, resolve, and grief turning into purpose. Rachel didn't die in an accident. She was silenced, and I wasn't going to let her story end in darkness. Not anymore.